I'm Josh. I work at Safe and Just Michigan and have been known to share some information about Twitter over time. All right, so I'm going to go to share screen here in just a second so you'll be able to see the presentation. Again, I'm Josh from Safe and Just Michigan, and I'm a policy analyst in my day job, but also I have been known to do a little bit of Twitter organizing over time. So before I go to share screen, I do want to say to everybody that the first part of this is going to be pretty basic. So if you're already very familiar with Twitter, just kind of like zone out for a few minutes, because I made it kind of basic so that people who have no idea and are just getting on Twitter for the first time will have some basic ideas of what's going on the platform. After that, we'll go into more specifics of Twitter storms and what exactly we need to do to get ready for the Twitter storm tomorrow, which hopefully everybody is going to participate in. And the first thing before anyone zones out that I want to encourage everyone to do is, if you have friends, if you have family, if you know people who care about incarcerated people, numbers matter in Twitter storms. And so getting everyone involved from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock tomorrow is really critical to making this thing go. We trended nationally briefly the first time we did this with about 34 people participating. My real hope for tomorrow is that we're going to have around 100. And my hope is that we can trend all over the place if we really do this right. And so, if you know people who this is an issue for them, then make sure you reach out to them and share any information from this that might help them. So I'm going to go to share screen now so you all can see my PowerPoint, once I figure out which one is the right one to put up. There we go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
All right. So what is Twitter? Twitter is an engagement platform. If you do not connect, you will not succeed. In other words, like the old joke is always like, people, why does anyone care what time you ate breakfast on Tuesday? Why does social media matter? Well, social media really isn't about just sharing what you're doing every day. It's also about connecting with other people and engaging with them. If your messages are not getting engagement, then you're not probably getting the most benefit out of the platform. And so while sharing your message, what you're doing every day can actually be interesting to some people, especially if they share some of the same activities and interests that you do, it is actually the connecting of people. And when people get together and start having conversations and engaging over things, that makes Twitter and social media work. For every time you push your own content, make sure you're also lifting up other people's messages, that you're sharing information from other sources that people can use, and creating community. A lot of people use social media to be mean to each other. It works much better if you find ways to create common community with other folks, in my experience. What can you include in a post? Like I said at the beginning, we're going to be a little bit basic. You can have up to 280 characters of content. You can include hashtags, which is what that little number means, and we'll talk more about that later, that little symbol there. You can include pictures. You can include links to other articles, URLs. You can include optimized links, and we'll talk about the difference between links and optimized links in a little bit. You can include screenshots if you have ever used your snipping tool or anything else to take screenshots from your computer. You can share videos from your phone or other recording device. And you can tag people. Social media addresses on Twitter, they start with an @ symbol. So like my Twitter tag is @JoshuaB.Ho, just my name. And that's how people connect with me on Twitter. And if you wanted to tag me in a tweet, you would put at the end of the tweet @JoshuaB.Ho. And then I would know that you had included me in your tweet and could respond to it. So what is a perfect tweet? No matter what you write in a tweet, it's successful if it gets engagement. That is actually a screenshot from a couple months ago. I do average, over 1 million impressions every month, sometimes more than others. And that's because I really concentrate on trying to create community and create engagement. Hierarchy of engagements. How people engage with your post matters in terms of how much reach tweets have. And this will become really important when we're getting into the tweet storm stuff, because reach is one of the ways that we figure out how much impact our tweet storm or anything that we do on social media has. Reach means how many people actually can see it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they do see it, but that they have the ability to see it. If you send a message, for instance, if I have 1,000 followers, I think I have like close to like 9,000 and something followers. If you send a message, it goes to everyone you follow, at least goes past their feed. If someone retweets your message, it also goes to everyone who follows them. So if someone I follow who has 40,000 followers retweets something I said, then the reach is essentially 48,000 followers. And if anyone else retweets it, then that increases the reach and it gets bigger and bigger. So the kind of hierarchy of how you want to get things, the absolute top of the pyramid is what's called a quote retweet, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Then the second one is a retweet. The third is a quote retweet with image. A fourth is a reply. Fifth is a like. And 6 is nothing. So if, it's like if a tweet is in the forest and nobody sees it, does it exist? That's a good question. I'm not really sure the answer to it. I'm sure the algorithm knows it exists, but probably nobody else does. So let's get into kind of what all these little things are. Rules of Twitter, part 1. Okay, always be active. You cannot gain attention on Twitter if you're not participating on Twitter. Social media actually requires you to be social. We already talked about participate. In other words, don't just push messages, also interact with other people's messages. A Twitter storm is kind of like the ultimate example of that, because it's a bunch of people around a particular message and trying to lift up one particular kind of engagement. Engagement is the holy grail. We already talked about that. This one I think is pretty important, which is when you're on Twitter, if you haven't been on there before, be who you are. Don't post like other people. Try to figure out what will make your account stand out is really yours. You need to add your own authentic takes. I personally don't think you should ever be a troll. There are people whose whole kind of social media strategy is to say mean things all the time, or try to, egg people on by bringing out the worst in people. But that's not really what I think, the best of social media represents. Rules of Twitter part 2, always be optimizing. And this is really important, especially during the Twitter storm. There's a difference between what's called a regular post and an optimized post. If you look on this post right here, you're going to notice that you're going to see where the tweet is, the body of the tweet, which is the quote in the top. It's not that we're not enforcing the law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That says, please take a second and just think, okay, that's the end of the quote. After that, I included a URL. And that URL is an optimized URL. And so when I put it in the tweet and hit send, you'll notice that it sends with a picture already on the tweet and a link to the article. So if I click on that article, on that tweet, it'll actually take me to the article. And so it sort of serves as an immediate call to action link. In other words, I can look at what the tweet says, I can see if the article is interesting to me, and I can click on the article and it'll take me immediately to the article. And so using optimized links is really important. In other words, links that, when you put them in the box, you'll see that picture and that little summary of the article pop up at the end. That tells you that you used an optimized link as opposed to a non-optimized link, which is one where those things wouldn't populate in the bottom. And this is really important because, if you only have 280 characters, this expands the amount of ways that you can bring information and drive people towards something that you're trying to push. And so using stuff that optimizes is really important. And I just explained all of that. Optimizing maximizes your tweet space. It makes it look better on the screen. Almost every research study that's ever been done says that tweets that have images do much better than tweets that don't have images. And if you can't use an optimized link, then you should use images with your tweets, and I'll talk more about how to do that in just a second. But whenever you're trying to drive people towards something, using an optimized link is your best strategy. An unoptimized link looks like this. So I could have put a body in the tweet right under where it says my name. and then put the link. And you'll see that when the link populated, I'm not trying to pick on the Michigan Center for Youth Justice. It just happens that I have this old tweet when they didn't have an optimized link. And you'll see just kind of this blank box. And so that doesn't look as good on someone's feed as the optimized link I showed above. It won't draw their attention as much. And so you want to use optimized instead of non-optimized links. Twitter rules part 3. Every follower matters. If you don't care about them, why will they care about you? It's called social media for a reason. I honestly believe that of my over 9,000 followers on my main Twitter account, I have at least interacted once with every single person on that follows me. I know that sounds like a lot, but I try really hard to be aware of who my followers are, and when they add me, I try to interact with them in some way. And over the years, a lot of those people I've actually met in real life, and a lot of those people I've gotten to know over years of interacting with them. So it's been a very mutually beneficial situation. I know people all over the country. Almost every single person who's been on my podcast, I met first on Twitter. So it's also been really good as a business networking experience and as an organizing networking experience. Connect. Every time someone mentions you or tags you or quote tweets you, you should respond. See it as an opportunity. Twitter is about engagement. When you have a chance to engage. Authentically share. People do actually want to know about you. I do try to tell people things, not super immediate information. I don't want like people to be stalking me or anything like that, but I will say things about my life and about things that I like and about things that I enjoy so that people can not just know me in terms of the stuff that I'm trying to push in terms of organizing, but also know me as a person and start to create a relationship with me. You should also tag people who might be interested. We talked about tagging earlier. That just means adding their social media address. Get to know your neighborhood. Like I think that I tweet in the criminal justice reform neighborhood or the abolition neighborhood. Those are the ones that I spend the most time in. And there you'll get to know over time all the people in your neighborhood who are influencers. Getting to know them, following them will help you start to gain traction. Twitter commands. This is for if you've never used Twitter before, this will hopefully help you. When you see a tweet that you want to interact with, you have options. If you see at the bottom of the screen, there's a little balloon, there's a set of arrows, there's a heart, and then there's a little arrow going up. Each one of these represents a different command in a way that you can interact with a tweet. Your options are comment, that's the talk balloon, retweet, which is the little rectangle of arrows, quote retweet, which we'll talk more about in a second, and get a link. And that just means that when you push that arrow that's going straight up, that it'll give you a link so that you can capture that link. And you could say, like if you were writing a news story and you wanted to have a link to someone's tweet, that is where you would get that link and use it in your news story, etc. Quote retweeting. So when you hit retweet, when you just hit that little square with all the arrows going around in a rectangle, you'll be prompted to add a comment. It'll see where it says add a comment. You can type another 280 characters right there to say what you think about the tweet that someone else made. That is one of the highest ways that you can get engagement because it kind of magnifies the connection between you and whoever you're tweeting with and hits all of those followers. So that's what a quote retweet is, and it kind of does it automatically. If you don't retweet and you just want to retweet, that box will still come up, but instead of typing something in where it says add a comment, you'll just hit retweet, and then it'll just retweet. Okay, that was the basics. So if anyone has any questions, I can probably answer them. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rushing through this, but I hope everyone has some basic familiarity. If you don't, then I can certainly answer any quick questions if it's just a few minutes. All right, hearing no questions, we'll go to Twitter storms. What is a Twitter storm? A Twitter storm is a sudden spike in activity surrounding a certain topic on Twitter, using a certain and original hashtag, which sort of functions like, the hashtag functions kind of like the meeting. It's like if you said, let's all meet at the store. The hashtag is like the store that everyone would go meet at. The tweets quickly spread as people are notified. about the message, and then reuse the hashtag with subsequent tweets, retweets, and other messaging. The goal is to trend to gain more and more attention locally, statewide, and then nationally. The goal is really algorithmic recognition, which is what trending is, that it notices that a lot of people are paying attention and participating. So as I'll say several times in this, numbers really do matter. The first stage is preparation. We've done a lot of that for this tweet storm. As many of you, I hope, have already received the folder we put together. I personally wrote, I think, about 100 tweets for this tweet storm. One of the things you're going to want to get used to doing, and we'll talk about this a little more earlier, is how to compose a tweet using those kind of things. So you've got a message, for instance. Some of those messages say they need an image. Some of them say they don't need an image. If you have the ones that say don't need an image, and then you notice in the folder there's also a bunch of images, what you'll do is match up the images by saving them to your computer and then add those to your tweet in the moment. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But before you send it out, you want to include a message and an image, or a message and an optimized link, to make sure that when it goes out, you also want to make sure it has the hashtags, but I think we already put the hashtags in every single one of the pre-written tweets. And so if you go through and download, like tonight, all of the different images that were in the folder so that they're on your computer, you'll be able to add those to tweets as you go in the tweet storm. Another thing that I would suggest, if you're a little more sophisticated, if you have a social media scheduler, you might want to set your social media scheduler with a bunch of the tweets in advance for the period between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. so you don't have to do as much actual tweeting in the moment. And that can allow you to focus on other things like retweeting other people's messages, which might be helpful, because that's part of what you're going to want to do in a tweet storm, is not just put your own messages out there, but interact with everyone else's messages and make sure they get as much sharing as humanly possible so that they get more and more and more people watching them. So you want to pick your targets. How do you want to target with your Twitter storm? So there are the people you're directing the action toward. We've already made a list of the different people that you can target or tag. You know, there are people like Governor Whitmer, people like Heidi Washington, people like the Michigan Department of Corrections, people like Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist. You know, there's a list of them, and the Department of Health and Human Services in Michigan. Things like that, that different messages will have different people that you might want to tag. There's people who might help spread the message and uplift the campaign. If you know people in your own networks, if you know people on your own email lists who probably have Twitter and would participate, this is the time to get them involved, to get them going ahead of time. Share the folder with them. Let them know what's coming up and how they can help, because the more people participate, the better. We need to try and highlight participating organizations. You know, we know that AFSC Michigan is involved. We know that Nation Outside is involved. We know that Safe and Just Michigan is involved. We know that, there's so many, you know, Michigan United, Michigan Liberation. I could probably come up with 100 organizations, PCAP, Michigan Carceral State Project. There's all the people on this call. You know, there's so many people that we can highlight and get in, you know, to make sure that everyone knows who all's participating. You can always tag people like that when you're doing a storm, or just do a tweet on your own, even if you don't do one of the pre-planned tweets that just says, thanks to all these organizations that I work with who have been involved in this tweet storm. It's just a way to bring attention to them and to the work that they're doing too. Make sure your planned tweets tag the people you want to target. We already talked about that. And also make sure that when you have demands, that the people that you're tagging have the power to do what you asked. And we do have a list of demands for this tweet storm, and we do have images for each of those demands and kind of a general tweet for the demands. If you haven't seen those, make sure you look through the folder, because I think there's 7 of them in the folder. There's actually long-term demands too, and I didn't get to doing images on those, but you can certainly do those on your own if you want. They're in Natalie's letter that she put out. Pick your hashtag. Now, we've already done this for this tweet storm. The tweet storm hashtag is Let My People Go with MI for Michigan. This is the same hashtag we've used for a long time for these for the Twitter storms around this. It's really important that you Personally, what I do is I enter the hashtag into the search bar on my Twitter interface, and then I'll hit enter, and that takes me and it'll show me every single tweet that's coming with that hashtag in it. And it also allows me to automatically, when I hit tweet, that hashtag will already appear in my tweet. So it saves me time when I'm writing tweets, and it also lets me see every single new tweet that comes in. You have to hit refresh every so often for that to work, but it will continue to cycle when you hit refresh. And so you can see all the new tweets that are coming in. And remember, part of what we're trying to do is not just put out our own tweets, but also to highlight and retweet other people's tweets. And so it's really important that you center yourself around the hashtag, let my people go. Like I said, it's kind of like the gathering place. It's like the place you tell everyone to meet. On Twitter, it functions just like if we were saying meet at the park or meet at the store. And so we all need to meet at the hashtag, let my people go. Pick a dedicated day or time. We did that. It's tomorrow between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. The reason we did that is because those are very high traffic times on Twitter. Do this when the most people are on Twitter. Apparently, even though everyone's somewhat back at work, people still like to be on Twitter even when they're working, according to the statistics. Pick images when you don't have optimized links. Like I said, some of the stuff in the folder is optimized links, and some stuff says add images, and then there's a bunch of images in the folders. Like I said before, you need to download all those images to your computer in advance so that you have them, so that when you're writing the tweets, you can add the images you want to add to whatever the tweet is. You can also add your own, like I said, logos of the sponsor or co-sponsor organization, addresses, like we've talked about before. How do you compose a tweet using images? So if you aren't familiar with this, after you write your message and you've included the hashtags, you're going to see this icon at the bottom. Like I said before, it's got a little pic. Once you've written you can look down at the bottom in the left. It'll have this little image that looks like a couple of mountains with a sun over it. When you click on that, that'll bring up your desktop folder that has all your pictures and stuff in it. And so then you kind of just find out wherever you put the pictures on your computer, on your desktop, or on your phone, or wherever you're doing it from, and you just add whichever one you want, and then it'll, when you click on the picture twice on your desktop, it'll go straight to the tweet, and then you hit send, because you'll have the message, you'll have the hashtags, and then you'll have the image, and then you send it out. And so that's the way that you do that. You can consider challenging people to make videos. And if anyone on this call wants to make a video that they want to tweet out, tweeting a video is very easy from most phones. When you take a video, there'll be a social sharing button on your phone where where if you click on it, it'll ask you where you want to share it. And then you'd say Twitter. Just make sure that in the message, you've included the hashtags, the Let My People Go hashtag. And if you make a video about why you care about people in prison, or why you think it's important that we're doing this, you can tweet that video out, and videos get really good engagement too. So, you can even make it in advance and then send it out later by saving it on your phone. That's a really good way to add a different kind of video that has a little bit more impact and is a little more personal. We didn't do this time, but you can create a TweetStorm campaign landing page, which is somewhere where you can want everybody to go, and hopefully it'll be an optimized page on your website. So if you're ever doing a Twitter storm for your organization or anything else, you might consider creating a landing page on your website that you can then have in the Twitter storm. When you're sending out messages, have a link to that. You have that URL in your tweet that says, to send people where you want them to do. If you have particular calls to action you want people to engage in, or if you have a call your legislator page or whatever, you can send them directly to that from your Twitter storm. Make sure you do all the regular stuff again. Okay, the next thing is recruit. We've talked about this before, but I want to reemphasize it. The idea is to get the most people participating during this period as is humanly possible. If we want people to really pay attention, we even got newspaper articles written about it the first time we did this, and we only had 34 people really engaged. And so if we can get the numbers up and we can really get people participating, I think we can actually get national attention tomorrow if we're really working hard. Share the campaign with everyone you know. Talk to everyone that you know who might have a Twitter account or might want to create a Twitter account. Share any helpful information you have on how to participate. Share the folder with all the stuff pre-written in it. And most importantly, tell them how to participate, even if they're not putting up tweets, by sharing other people's tweets and messages. Just try to tell everyone you can, because the more people, the better. The point is engagement, like I said before. It's really important to not just send tweets, which, I think everyone should send tweets, but you should also take time in between tweets to look at what everyone else is tweeting and to hit retweet or quote retweet or comment on every single one of those tweets so that it gets more engagement, which helps with the algorithm. So like, for instance, when we did it the first time, I was tweeting from my account, from the Nation Outside account, and also from another account. And every time I saw something, I would retweet it from all those accounts to increase its engagement. It took, I had a TweetDeck open, I had my account open, I had another thing open. And so I was using all those at the same time and trying to keep up with them while I was also sending tweets. And so it is possible to multitask and get a whole bunch of things done through the whole process. And even if you don't do that, like I said, the easiest way to do this is just to enter the hashtag in your search bar and then hit enter. It'll take you to the page that's essentially all the tweets that are coming on that hashtag. Yeah, I just did an example of that right there. If I was doing en masse incarceration, it would come right there. If you click on the en masse incarceration, it'll take you to the page like I talked about after you've entered in the search bar. And then, so you need to click on where it says the hashtag, and then it'll take you on the tweet down here below where under Westside Center for Justice. If you click on the hashtag that you want to follow to, when you click on it, it'll take you to the page that has all the tweets on it. So do the search and then click on one of the hashtags and that'll take you where you need to go. Tweeting from a hashtag page. One of the best ways to follow this, what I was just talking about, is to stay on the hashtag search page, follow the instructions above. It'll look like this. That's what it looks like. And then you can interact with all those tweets. If you hit tweet from this, the hashtag will come up automatically. Which saves you some time in formulating. Now, a lot of the tweets we pre-formulated already have the hashtag in them. You don't want the hashtag in there twice, so be aware of that. You don't need to reformat them once they've already been formatted. As you see, the hashtag will come up automatically when you tweet it. And you don't have to use the pre-created tweets. In fact, it helps a lot of time if you've got a personal connection to this issue. If you tell some of your story, you tell some of the reason why you care about this issue or why you're participating in the tweet storm. The pre-prepared tweets are just helpers. You can definitely tell your story. You can definitely say it any way you want to, and you can share anything you want to. This is about all of us who've either been directly impacted or have friends or family who are impacted, or have been through some brushes with the criminal justice system, and you just want to show solidarity with the folks that are in prison and dealing with COVID right now. This is about you saying why you're there and what you want to do. So don't be afraid to put your own tweet in there, and you don't have to put an image if you don't want to. Just make sure, and your voice matters, and it's important that you participate in the way that you want to. Okay, and then we get to the storm. Set the tone. We definitely want as many tweets as possible. We want everyone to tweet, retweet, and quote tweet all the messages that you see to amplify the campaign. You need to watch for responses, comments, and quote tweets, and engage with people whenever possible. There will be some people who jump into this tweet storm and start saying terrible things. My personal opinion is mostly ignore them. If you give them attention, if you feed the trolls, then more and more people will get involved. If you leave the trolls alone and just let them sit in their own little kind of lives, then they mostly will go away. The sheer volume of us who are doing it for the right reasons will hopefully vastly outnumber anyone who decides to troll us. If they do, let them be jerks on their own time. Just stick with what we're doing and try to do the best you can to keep the message going. The last few times we've done this, there have been very few trolls. There's been some, but I just recommend don't feed the trolls, move on. And if they're annoying you, just block them or mute You don't have to. One of the cool things about Twitter is there's a block and mute function. If you look up on the top of the tweet, you'll notice there's a little arrow. You can click on that. It's like a down arrow. You can click on that. It gives you options to mute or block, or and things like that. And that allows you to make sure you won't see anything else they say for the rest of the time. So if they're annoying you, just make them go away. Have fun and thank people. The goal is to trend. Getting more people even beyond our cycle to participate is important. So if you see other people that aren't people from our group that are paying attention, join in with them, thank them, bring them along. Make sure that they get recognition too. At the end, make someone from an organization, if you control organizational accounts, try to use those to thank people who participated, to thank other organizations, to create kind of community as much as possible. With any luck, we'll have drawn a huge amount of new people, and it'll also hopefully bring attention to your organization and to the work you're doing. And you could definitely, from your organizational accounts or from accounts that are personal that are tied to organizations, you should talk about the work you're doing in regards to COVID and incarceration, or anything like that. And sharing what you all are doing is important too. All right, so that's basically the breakdown of what a Twitter storm is. The main thing, if it's just in a nutshell, the idea is just to have a lot of people around one hashtag really making a lot of noise, and bringing as much attention to what's going on in our prisons as possible, trying to get everyone to notice so that we start getting on the agenda. One of the main asks that we've had for this whole thing is that Gretchen Whitmer sits down with us and talks about the problems that the MDOC is having with COVID in prisons, and is transparent about all the things that we aren't seeing. That's one of just the basic asks. And so just getting trending to the point where we get coverage and people notice it makes it more likely that that'll happen. There are a lot more specific asks, but the more people that participate and the more this builds, the better chance we have to get those asks met, or at least to, create pressure on people to recognize the asks. And if you haven't looked at the asks, like I said, they're all in the folder. Now, there's plenty of time left over here for us to, for me to take some questions. I'm going to get rid of the screen share if I can figure out how to do that, so that people can ask questions. I think I can do that. Stop share. There we go. All right. So I'm certainly willing to answer any questions anyone has. Sorry if I didn't, if I rushed or anything like that. Just jump in if anyone has one. If not, that's cool too.
Josh, I have one.
Yeah.
Do you? It sounds like the meeting with Governor Whitmer is sort of, kind of numero uno, I guess. If you're not going to be doing every single one in the batch, are there others that are high priority that you'd like us to focus on, or is it more focused on what you have credibility in?
I think it's good to do whatever you feel most comfortable with, on any of this stuff. If there's something you feel you have a more personal connection to and you want to tweet more about, then pick those tweets, or use your own tweets around those things. Another thing I might suggest is what's called a Twitter thread. And that's where you connect multiple tweets on the same subject. And the way that you do that is after you've got your first tweet, at the bottom where the little balloon is, you hit the balloon, which is usually respond, but you're responding to your own message. And then you put another tweet, and it'll ask if you want to add another tweet, and then you'll hit yes. And when you do that, it creates another tweet that you can add another to, and another, and another, and another. And so when there's a list of demands, you can put each of those demands in the thread, and then you have the full thread of demands in essentially one set of tweets that are all connected to each other. And anyone who sees the tweets, it'll say, do you want to read the thread? And you can click on that and you'll see the whole thread. And so that's a tricky way to be able to include multiple thoughts in one tweet.
Right.
Really, it's more than one tweet, but it's a thread of tweets.
Right. Thank you.
Hey, Josh, there's a couple questions in the chat box. One is if you or someone else could put the folder with the materials in it in the chat box, the link, I would do that, but I don't have it. That would be helpful. And then the second question that's come up is, does scheduling tweets ahead of time have any impact on their reach and engagement?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
When you schedule tweets in advance, like use TweetDeck or something like that, does it impact their engagement or reach, or does it just operate like if you were tweeting real time?
As long as your social scheduler is set correctly for the time period, the 11 to 1 p.m. time period, for them to go out on like every couple minutes or every 5 minutes or something like that, it won't affect anything in terms of reach or engagement, because as far as Twitter knows, it's just another tweet. If you would put it out, if I put it in my schedule for 11:05, or if I put out a tweet at 11:05, it'll have the exact same effect because it's still going to Twitter the exact same way. The only thing that changes is that you've preset them all in your scheduler. I don't know, some people use TweetDeck, I use Buffer. There's a bunch of different social schedulers. There's one called Later. I don't know what all the ones that different people use are, but whichever one you use, it shouldn't change anything as long as you set it right. Just make sure it's set for Eastern Standard Time.
Great, thanks, Josh. And if it doesn't necessarily have to be Josh, but if anybody has the links and materials, they could drop it in the chat.
I don't have an electronic link to the Dropbox because it was sent through an email. If someone else has the link, from when it was sent out yesterday, I don't have it right here. I'll try to, it was sent out to the large email list yesterday. If someone has a version of it that I don't have, then feel free to put it on there.
I have
Can
a
you copy
question.
and paste from what you have and put it into something?
No, because it's a Dropbox folder full of different links. So there wouldn't be something to copy and paste. As far as I know, I could just not be understanding, but I can forward it to someone. If people don't have my email, it's just josh@safeandjustmichigan.org. If you send me an email and ask for the folder, I'll send it to you.
I'm sorry. Having everything audio is not very accessible to me. Thank you for typing the email. I'll just send you an email.
Sorry. I didn't mean to be complicated. I tried to put it. If people want the Google Slides, I can send them to you if that's helpful too. Or I can send you the link to the Google Slides. Any other questions?
I asked if, so I'm sorry, I'm not very social media oriented, but I was just curious if I've seen people post things on Facebook with the tags or the @ and hashtag symbols. Do those automatically go into Twitter?
Yeah, hashtags work on any platform, but it just depends on what platform you're posting on. The Twitter Storm is a Twitter only thing. So if you were to try to engage on the Twitter Storm while you're on Facebook, that wouldn't do much for you. Everyone will be on Twitter, so you need to do it on Twitter. But the same hashtags you would use on Facebook are the same hashtags that you would use on Twitter. Your ats are probably different because people's Facebook address is different than their Twitter address.
Yeah.
So if you tag them on Facebook, it probably wouldn't show up on Twitter, right?
I have more followers obviously on Facebook than I do Twitter yet, so I didn't know if trying to communicate with people to get them to help me on Facebook to transition to Twitter. So that's what I was trying to think about.
You absolutely could, and what I would suggest doing, and you can email me for this too, there is a flyer for the event, and I can email you the flyer for the event, and you can then put that on Facebook and say, join us on Twitter.
Okay.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah, Troy.
If a person posts a Twitter post, a link to a Twitter post on Facebook, that will still hyper them to Twitter, right?
It could. They could see the post on Facebook and then decide to go to Twitter, sure. But they won't be on Twitter when they're on Facebook, if that's what you're asking.
I understand. If I click the link that takes me to something on,
it should take you to your Twitter account.
Click the link and it'll take me.
Yeah, if you click a link on Facebook that's a Twitter link, it should take you to your Twitter account, yes.
All right.
I think I see Jerry in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, she's talking on the phone with her son in prison, so I'm here taking you in.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Another Jerry Walden showed up too. I just didn't notice that he was in here. It's an old friend, so I just wanted to say hi. Hi.
Josh, this is Mary Lynn. I have one more question.
Yeah.
I was just looking through the stuff in the, that came in the all the packet of tweets and graphics and stuff. And in the sort of Word document that has the tweets in it, there are a number of URLs, but they don't look to be links. They're just the URLs. Is there a way, I mean, can you how do I get them to be a URL in the tweet?
I haven't tried that Word document yet, but usually if you copy and paste the whole thing and put it into Twitter, it should show up as a blue
Just pick it
URL. If it doesn't, I'm not
Google
sure.
do some kind of thing where you go and actually someplace that turns it into a link and then copy it and bring it in.
It
It
should
links
hyperlink
automatically.
automatically. Is
Does
my
it? Okay.
guess.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it.
I do everything through Google Docs, so I'm not familiar with the Word so much. I've become total Google universe, unfortunately, so I've lost track of all the. Any other questions? How's everybody doing? I hope this was helpful. I don't, it's one of those things where it really just, if everybody just participates, and the most important thing is, no matter what you do, make sure that whenever you see a message, do something to amplify it. Even if it's not your message, especially if it's not your message, just keep doing whatever you can do to amplify it and try to get everyone who cares about prisons involved. And this should be a really big event tomorrow. It's been I know everyone knows this, but it's been a really rough week. We lost 7 people in the last, 4 or 5 days inside. And, it's really, we got to do whatever we can do at this point. We've been trying for months to get the governor's attention. We're going to try again. Let's just make this the best we can do. I mean, keep the faith and let's make this work. And I really appreciate everyone showing up for this. And I hope it was helpful. All right. See y'all tomorrow.